federal agent called 911 claiming a stranger had broken into his home and attacked his wife. But when detectives examined the evidence, they found no signs of forced entry, a suspicious 15-minute gap between emergency calls, and a victim's phone mysteriously turned off in the kitchen. What looked like a home invasion was actually an elaborate murder plot involving fetish websites, staged roleplay, and a nanny who had moved into the master bedroom. Section 1. The emergency call on February 24, 2023 at 7:47 a.m. in Fairfax County, Virginia. A 911 call disconnected after barely a second. 15 minutes later, the same number called back. Brendan Banfield, identifying himself as a federal agent, told dispatchers he had shot an intruder who was attacking his wife Christine. His au pair, Juliana Perez-Magel, was on the line applying pressure to Christine's wounds. When first responders arrived at the $1 million Suburban home, they found Christine Banfield, 37, suffering from severe stab wounds in the master bedroom. Across the room lay Joseph Ryan, 39, dead from multiple gunshot wounds. The couple's 4-year-old daughter was found physically unharmed in the basement. Christine was rushed to the hospital but died from blood loss. On the surface, it appeared to be a tragic home invasion where a husband was forced to shoot an intruder to protect his family. But seasoned detectives immediately noticed problems with the story. Section 2. A scene without evidence. Sharp investigators found no signs of forced entry at the Banfield residence. No shattered glass, no broken doors, no obvious trail of intrusion. The house felt like any other weekday morning, orderly and undisturbed. The only evidence of violence was contained within the master bedroom itself. The timing of the calls raised immediate questions. Why had Juliana made that initial 1-second call at 7:47 a.m., then waited more than 15 minutes to call again? Christine's phone was found turned off and tucked away in the kitchen, something friends and family insisted she would never do. Brendan's behavior on body camera footage struck officers as unusual. He repeated the same story over and over, almost as if rehearsed. When told at the hospital that Christine had died, he didn't scream or collapse. He simply dropped his head and cried softly, seeming more concerned with convincing medical staff that he had tried to help than with processing the devastating news. Detectives realized this looked less like chaos and more like a deliberate plan. Section 3. The perfect suburban family. Christine Banfield was a pediatric intensive care nurse who spent her days working with sick children and scared parents. She had trained as a sexual assault forensic nurse examiner, helping victims during traumatic moments and testifying in court. Friends and family described her as steady, practical, deeply compassionate, and dependable. Brendan Banfield, a few years older than Christine, worked as an IRS agent after previous law enforcement experience. The couple had met in college during their freshman year, married, and had a daughter. From the outside, they appeared to be the ideal suburban family in their expensive Fairfax County home, but when detectives reconstructed their marriage, they found numerous cracks. Brendan's infidelity had been a recurring issue for nearly a decade, with multiple affairs, hundreds of hidden messages, and secret conversations. While this didn't automatically point to murder, it revealed that Brendan was deeply unhappy, yet unwilling to change. The discovery shifted the investigation's focus. This was no longer just a random act of violence, but possibly a husband with motive. Section 4. The au pair affair. In 2022, the Banfields hired Juliana Perez-Magel, a woman in her early 20s from Brazil who had come to the United States on a cultural exchange program. With both parents working demanding professional jobs, hiring live-in help made practical sense. Initially, Juliana performed typical nanny duties, school runs, babysitting, cleaning. But several months after moving in, boundaries began to blur. By the 10th month, she was in bed with Brendan. The affair wasn't dramatic or romantic, but quietly mundane, which somehow made it worse. Rather than fizzling out, the relationship deepened. Brendan never discussed divorcing Christine. Instead, he told Juliana he wanted to marry her and have children with her, but divorce was not an option. It was too messy, too expensive, and he refused to lose custody of his daughter or split the family's assets. So instead of imagining life after Christine, they began imagining life without her. When detectives searched the home months after Christine's death, they found a framed photo of Brendan and Juliana on the master bedroom nightstand. Juliana's clothes filled the master bedroom closet. She had moved from her own room down the hall into the master bedroom with Brendan just weeks after Christine died. The furniture and flooring had been replaced. To investigators, this didn't look like grief but total replacement. Section 5. The Fetish website set up. Detectives used Christine's IP address to examine her online activity and discovered she had been on a fetish website called FetLife. Dozens of users had messaged her account, with conversations about violent sex involving knives, restraints, and non-consent roleplay. This seemed completely out of character for Christine, whose friends and family insisted affairs and violent sex were definitely not her thing. The pattern of activity was revealing. Messages only occurred when Brendan and Juliana were home with Christine. When they were away on weekends or Brendan traveled for work, the account went silent. This didn't look like personal behavior, but like a setup. Behind Christine's name, Brendan and Juliana were searching for someone they could use in their plot to murder Christine. They sent messages from Christine's laptop so evidence would point back to her. Their plan was to lure a stranger to the family home with a weapon so they could murder both the stranger and Christine, then frame the stranger as an intruder who had attacked her. It was disgustingly smart and elaborate. Section 6. Joseph Ryan. The victim Joseph Ryan was 39 years old, living nearby in Virginia, with no violent background. He was passionate about social justice and animals, popular in his friendship groups, and involved in BDSM and live-action roleplay communities. Under the name Korak, he attended LARPing events across the country, reenacting wartime scenarios. Many media outlets unfairly portrayed Joseph as an incel or attacker, but he had several long-term relationships throughout his adult life and had explicitly told his mother he didn't like actual violence or knife play. Disguised as Christine, Brendan and Juliana spoke to numerous men on FetLife and selected Joseph as their target. They told him Christine wanted the encounter to be as realistic as possible, that she wanted to pretend it wasn't consensual, that the door would be unlocked, and he should bring a knife as part of the role play. Joseph didn't believe he was breaking into a property. He believed he had permission to enter for a consensual staged fantasy between adults. He walked into that house as an invited guest, not an attacker. Meanwhile, Christine was completely unaware of the entire situation, set up to collide with a stranger she had never spoken to before. Section 7. The murder plan executed in the weeks before the murder. Brendan and Juliana visited shooting ranges together where he taught her how to handle a firearm, aim properly, and stay steady under pressure. Juliana checked the neighborhood for doorbell and ring cameras that might capture movement. Brendan replaced the master bedroom windows with heavier, soundproof ones, a seemingly innocent upgrade that felt incredibly deliberate in hindsight. On February 24, 2023, phone records and surveillance footage showed Brendan leaving the house that morning, but stopping at a McDonald's parking lot instead of going straight to work. He ordered food and stepped inside multiple times, clearly passing time. At the house, Juliana unlocked the door Joseph would use and made herself scarce. Once Joseph was inside, she snuck downstairs and called Brendan to return home. Within minutes, Brendan was back. Instead of calling police or evacuating everyone, he moved his daughter to the basement. Upstairs, chaos unfolded between Christine and Joseph, both probably very uncomfortable. As planned, Juliana and Brendan entered the bedroom. Juliana allegedly shot Joseph point-blank in the face. Moments later, Brendan stabbed his own wife to death. Neither victim stood a chance. Christine went from being attacked by a stranger to watching that stranger murdered to being murdered herself. Brendan then moved bodies and the knife to make it look like Joseph had attacked Christine. Only then did the final 911 call happen. Section 8. Justice and Aftermath. It took 8 months, until October 2023, for police to arrest Juliana on suspicion of murder for shooting Joseph. 1 year later, Brendan was charged with 2 counts of aggravated murder. Juliana accepted a plea deal to testify against Brendan in exchange for facing the lesser charge of manslaughter. During the 3-week trial, she testified that Brendan had talked about finding a way to get rid of Christine rather than divorce her. After 9 hours of deliberation over 2 days, the jury found Brendan guilty on all major counts. He showed little reaction, displaying what observers described as sad puppy dog eyes. In Virginia, aggravated murder carries a life sentence. Brendan has not yet been sentenced, and Juliana's sentencing has not been announced. Christine's daughter lost both parents in this tragedy. Joseph was used as a prop, labeled an intruder, and lost his life for nothing. In Brendan and Juliana's calculation, his existence was worth less than the cost of divorce. Key takeaways: this case reveals how someone with law enforcement training can weaponize that knowledge to construct an elaborate murder plot. Brendan Banfield and Juliana Perez Magel didn't just kill Christine Banfield and Joseph Ryan. They orchestrated a scenario designed to make their crimes look like justified self-defense. They exploited online communities, staged a fake home invasion, and manipulated an innocent man into becoming their scapegoat. The investigation succeeded because detectives looked past the initial story and followed the evidence inward rather than outward. Christine, a devoted nurse and mother, was betrayed by the person who should have protected her. Joseph, who believed he was participating in consensual role-play, walked into a death trap. The real victim count includes Christine's daughter, who must now grow up without either parent, and Joseph's family, who lost a son to a senseless, calculated murder.